Ladies and gentlemen, the flag of our country. Essex Chamber Choir sing the Star-Spangled Banner.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free, and the home of the
Color Guard Retreat. Audience, you may be seated.
Thank you very much. That was lovely. All right, we'll start this evening with some introductions. First, to my left, we have the Select Board members. We have the Chair of the Select Board, Andy Watts, the Vice Chair, Tracy Delphia, the Clerk, Ethan Lawrence, Kendall Chamberlain, and in the audience we have Dawn Hill Fleury. The town staff we have here on stage, not all the staff, many of them are up front. But the ones who are on stage, we have the town manager, Greg Duggan. We have more news about him later in the program. Deputy Manager, Marguerite Ladd. Town Clerk and Treasurer, Susan McNamara Hill. And Finance Director, Dan Roy. So, thank you. All right, and in the audience joining us, we have, representing Chittenden North District, Senator Irene Renner, and Senator Martine LaRoque Gulick, representing District 23, Representative Ray Garofano, and joining us online, we have Senator Tanya Vyhovsky. Oh, I'm sorry. We have Leonora Dodge, I can't even say, and Alyssa Black. I'm so sorry you're not on the list, but I should have known. I saw you both. I guess that's it for me. Good night. The Girl Scouts who are here, if you'd like to finish. Okay. We would also like to thank the folks from the T-Rex Theater who worked really hard with us to make sure that we could get into this new place and have it go as seamlessly as possible. Especially thank you to Jesse Rivers and to Brady Kimball and the security staff who are here this evening. I would also like to thank the folks who checked everybody in and who will be doing any of the divisions of the House this evening, led by Georgia Levine, and Ken Signorello, who helped make sure that everybody got into the right place this evening. So we have the voters in the place that we know the voters are going to be, and the non-voters in the place where we know the non-voters are going to be. All right. So again, I'd like to just welcome everybody. I'd like to welcome new residents to Essex and new voters. I hope that you enjoy this first town meeting that you have here in the town of Essex. Robert's rules are the basic rules that will be governing the assembly here this evening, except for where they are superseded by state law. All motions and remarks should be addressed to me, not directly to other voters or to other people in the auditorium. All articles this evening must be moved, seconded, and restated by me before we can start debate on them. Articles may be amended. Amendments may be amended once. Debate may be cut off at any time with a motion to call the question, and that requires 2/3 majority if there are still people who are wishing to speak. When you speak, please stand and spell your name. We need that for the minutes, and I can't see anything from here. So even if I know who you are in real life, I am not going to be able to see you to call your name. So please make sure that you state it and spell your name loudly. This evening, when we're having conversations, no voter will be recognized a second time until everyone who wishes to speak on the matter has had the opportunity to speak at least once. And nobody will be speaking, well, without the permission of the House, nobody will be speaking more than twice on any given issue. Only registered voters, so those with green armbands, may make motions, vote, or speak to motions unless 2/3 of the House agree to waive the rules. My job is to help everybody have a productive meeting. So if anybody has any questions, Robert's rules, it's not a thing most people use, that's okay. If you have a question, just raise your hand and say that you have a point of information. Or if you think I'm getting something terribly wrong, raise your hand and say that you have a point of order. We'll figure it out. The whole point of this is to have a conversation and to get us where we need to be. Once an article has been moved, a motion for reconsideration must happen before the next article starts. So let me explain really quickly what that means. If we vote on an article tonight, and it is voted, let's say it's voted for, okay, so the yeas have it. You can, before the next article is introduced and restated, made, seconded, and restated by me, you can interject for a motion to reconsider. Now, if you're going to do that, you had to be on the losing side on the first issue, on the first vote. Why would you do that? If you just lost, why would you do that? Sometimes it can happen that you really had something that you thought was important to say, and you didn't get a chance to say it because talking was cut off. So if you wanted to ask for a movement to reconsider, just know that you have to do it before the next motion has been, or the next article has been moved, seconded, and explained. When it comes time to vote on any article or any amendment, we'll do it by a voice vote. And I will say, for instance, all the ayes, all the nays, and then I will say, maybe, the ayes appear to have it, and then I will pause. If you think I am wrong, if you think maybe it wasn't the ayes, then you can interject immediately and say, division of the House. And then we will go to everybody raising their hands so that we can get a more precise count, all right? So if you think that I'm calling it wrong, just call for a division of the House. That doesn't need to be seconded, and we will get right into that. And finally, if we do get to a division of the House, please make sure that when you raise your hand that has the green armband on it so that we know that you are eligible to be voting. All right? All right. I think that is it. If we could now please have Select Board Member Kendall Chamberlain come on up for the invocation of civility.
We are gathered together in civil assembly. We gather as a community in the oldest sense of the word. We gather to come together and try to make decisions about what is right, about what is wrong. Let us advocate for our positions, but not at the expense of others. Let us remember that there is an immense gap between saying, I am right, and saying, I believe I am right. And that our neighbors with whom we might disagree are good people, with hopes and dreams as true and high as ours. And let us always remember that, in the end, caring for each other in this community is far greater than any difference of opinion we might have. Thank you for being here this evening.
All right, and with that, we come to the business section of our meeting. Is there a motion on the floor? Yes, ma'am. I can see her. She's in the front row. Mrs. Dawn Hill-Fleury.
I make the motion to suspend the rules and require a majority to vote on the use of paper ballots.
All right, is there a second? All right, could you state and spell your name? All right, Lois Parmalee. Everybody got, oh, we don't have a recording secretary, right? This is online. So I shouldn't be looking up at anyone here. All right, Lois Parmalee, everyone. All right, so there is a motion on the floor to suspend the rules, which means that specifically to require a majority of voters to say we want to vote by paper ballot for any of the articles here this evening. All right, this is something that requires 2/3 of a vote, and this is not debatable. So, for all those in favor of requiring a majority of voters here to vote by paper ballot on any motions here, please vote aye. I'm sorry, hold on one second. Let me go back one second. So if you would like to keep the regular state law that says only 7 voters are required to endorse voting by paper ballots, you will want to vote nay, all right? So if you're in favor of requiring a majority to get a paper ballot, vote aye. If you want to stick with the regular rule of 7 ballots, vote nay. So all those in favor of suspending the rules and to require a majority vote to vote by paper ballot on any item this evening, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, vote nay. No. I think we might have, well, no, that's not 2/3. I'm going to say the nays appear to have it. The nays do have it. The motion fails. All right, is there another motion in the House? Perhaps a motion to start with Article 1. So moved. Sir, can you please say your name? Mark Roberts, R-O-B-E-R-T-S? All right, is there a second? All right, and your name? Arthur. I'm sorry, say it again? Arthur Ramsey, R-A-M-S-E-Y. All right. Is there anyone who would like to have a conversation about this? Anybody who has something to say about Article 1? If you do have something to say, there are mics in the back, and I can't see them. Is there anyone who's getting up to say anything about the articles or the reports of the officers? No? Then without objection, oh, here's another note. If I say without objection, and you object, say I object. So without objection means if it doesn't look like anybody has anything they'd like to say, we'll just move to the vote, all right? But you can object, and then we have to formally have the 2/3 vote. Without objection, yes? Sure, absolutely. So Article 1 is, shall the reports of the officers be accepted? And that is in the annual report. All right, so without objection, we will move to a vote on Article 1. All those, I'm sorry, let me restate it first. Shall the reports of the officers be accepted? All those who vote yea are voting to accept the report. Those who vote no are voting to not accept the report. So, all those in support of Article 1 vote yea. Those opposed? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 1 passes. Article 2, shall the Town of Essex vote on all public questions by Australian ballot? Could I get a motion, please? So moved. Could I get your name, please? Oh, Linda Myers, very nice. M-Y-E-R-S. Is there a second? Second? Okay, Arthur Ramsey again. All right, so now we are into the discussion of shall the Town of Essex vote on all public questions by Australian ballot? Please, if you have anything that you'd like to say, again, you can go right behind this first row of chairs, the first section of chairs. There are 2 mics, one on either side, and we'll just alternate sides. Unless there is no, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it looks like somebody's up. Yes, sir. If you could please, into the mic, just say your name and spell it as well.
Raymond.
Great, thank you.
I was just wondering, what does that mean? Does that mean that if we vote no, we're not going to have Australian ballots for the next year, or?
No, sir. What that means is, from now on, we would not vote on anything binding from the floor at town meeting tonight. So anything that had to be voted would be voted by Australian ballot on Tuesday.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Is there anyone else with any other questions or comments? Okay, yes, go ahead.
Hi, Margaret Smith. Do I need to spell it?
No.
So I have to say that one of the things that's been nice about living in Vermont is that we do have town meetings with a chance to discuss things and debate things and vote on them. And I realize that Australian ballot gives everybody a chance to weigh in, but it doesn't give them, it doesn't create the opportunity for them to come and listen to the discussions about items. And so sometimes when they vote, they're not really as informed as they could be. I know the Selectboard had a lot of budget meetings and not very many people showed up. So this is normally the place where there's a discussion. And we had a town meeting, I don't know, several years ago when somebody got up and asked to add $100,000 into the budget because some roads really needed fixing, and it did pass. And we lose the opportunity to make any changes like that if we go to 100% Australian ballot. So it's a toss-up. I think that we lose our personal power by going completely to Australian ballots. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure, go ahead.
So we're not talking about taking the budget back from the ballot. That was a separate vote that happened 3 or 4 years ago. And we're talking about questions that are other things that don't actually happen very often. The last time we had a floor vote that wasn't the budget was the question of whether to establish a conservation fund, which was, I believe, 2015 or 2016, and the time before that, I think, was in 2008. So it was a 7-year gap between the prior question and that one. So would be an uncommon thing for us to ask a question from the floor. And so the question that's being asked tonight is, should we take those questions that don't happen very often and put those on the ballot also?
That was Andy Watts, W-A-T-T-S. That's the last time you get to speak. All right, is there anyone else who would like to speak on this matter? Then without objection, we will move to a vote. This is Article 2. Shall the Town of Essex vote on all public questions by Australian ballot? If you vote yay, that means you want all matters to be voted on Australian ballot on town meeting Tuesday. If you vote nay, then you will want relevant items to be voted on at Monday night town meeting here in Essex. Are there any questions? All right, all those in favor of Article 2, Shall the Town of Essex vote on all public questions by Australian ballot? Please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Article 2 passes. Article 3, discussion of the ballot items. Could I get a motion to discuss the ballot items, Articles 5 through 12? All right, who is so moving? Betsy Dunn, D-U-N-N. Is there a second? Sir? Christopher Bird, B-I-R-D? Very good. All right, Article 3 has been moved and seconded. One quick note, there are an awful lot of articles here, so what we are going to do is for Article 5, we're going to have a budget presentation by the chair of the board, Andy Watts, and then after that presentation, we will invite comment. We will then do the same for Article 6 and Article 7, and then Articles 7 through 12 we'll do all at the same time. All right? Are you ready, sir? I guess so. Outstanding.
All right, we got the right thing up. Okay, sorry, I neglected to identify myself the last time I spoke. I'm Andy Watts, the chair of the Select Board. So I'm going to talk about the budget for FY24, which covers the year, or the calendar, not the calendar year, the fiscal year starting July 1st and going till of 2023, going to June 30th of 2024. So there's three major things that the Select Board wanted to focus on with this budget. First was this is our first budget post-separation of of Essex Junction. Our intent was to maintain services and all of our staffing, and while finding efficiencies and cost savings. And also appropriately plan for future maintenance and upgrades. Three big challenges that we had with this budget. One was the separation, that we lost approximately 41% of our tax base, our property tax base. And so although the budget itself is going down, it's spread over a smaller tax base, so resulting in a tax rate increase. Health insurance premiums increased on the order of 20%, and you're all experiencing inflations, same as the town on almost anything you buy. Things that we've done to save costs is we negotiated a contract with Essex Junction for them to pay 48% of the police budget. That was negotiated as part of the separation. We also are sharing assessing services, and then for the first half of FY24, senior services. Regional expenses, such as Green Mountain Transit, the county tax, Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission, and the League of Cities and Towns, and the Winooski Valley Park District. Those costs that used to be borne completely by the town are now split between the town and Essex Junction, so our costs have gone down there on the order of $422,000. That all got shifted over to the city. We've reduced our conservation reserve fund contribution. It had been $15,000 a year. I believe we dropped it to $8,000. What was it? 4? Maybe it was even lower. No, we lowered it down, commensurate with the 41% decrease of the tax base. Capital transfers, we've level funded from previous years. Human service funding, which is 1% of the budget, because the budget went down, those costs are going down. Overtime, we planned overtime, or budgeted overtime, we reduced to reflect our historical spending, and we funded the police budget at 90% based on historical spending, considering our staffing shortages. Let's see, staffing changes in this budget the clerk's office will go from 3 members to 2 as we transition from a shared clerk's office to a town-only clerk's office. The library is adding 5 additional hours to help with their coverage. Public Works is increasing one of their positions from 0.5 to 1. FTE is full-time equivalent person. For more stable staffing, particularly with COVID still present, the likelihood of turnover and upcoming retirements, just to keep ourselves staffed well. One of the parks employees is being split with the senior services to help provide better service on our senior van. Personnel costs between the general fund and the enterprise funds has been updated. Some of our staff are paid for through your water rates, and so those have been adjusted to reflect more accurate, our historical trends. And fire department, we're increasing the pay for the first time in 5 years from $15.50 an hour to $17 an hour. We're also going to start paying for training, which is something that we had, or restart paying for training, which is something we had dropped as we were trying to align with the Essex Junction practices for their fire department. And so, although we've increased, and we're also increasing hours for administrative hours for our officers, but the net effect is a lower salary budget for the, even though with those increases, the salary budget is decreased because we've clarified the amount of overtime. Let's see what else we got here. Additional costs come from Essex Rescue. They've increased their ask up to $18 per capita, up from $10.91. That's a 65% increase. And although our actual dollar amount we're giving to Essex Rescue is smaller because we have a smaller population, again, because it's spread across a smaller tax base, it's resulting in an increase. We are using $615,700 of leftover money from prior years to reduce the tax rate this year. That's not something we can do every year. The outlook is that next year we'll ramp that down to something smaller and then smaller, and hopefully we'll stop using fund balance. The intent is not to have fund balance. Again, that's leftover money from prior years. We try not to collect taxes that we're not going to spend. So that's hopefully that will go away, but it's helping us out this year. Things that are stopping as of July 1st this year, our IT department will no longer support Essex Junction. Our clerk's office, I mentioned already, will transition to a town only, and then recreation and senior services will continue through the end of the calendar year before they stop. So this is a summary of the biggest changes. We are no longer transferring money to Essex Junction. We used to, their highway department used to be fully funded from town taxes. A few other things, that adds up to $1.6 million that we don't need to collect anymore. Appropriations, I mentioned Essex Rescue, Green Mountain Transit, and the county tax are spread across, the Essex Junction is picking up a share of that now. Our personnel costs are going up $600,000, insurance $142,000, and then here's the inflation for salt, sand, gravel, fuel, and gasoline. Those added together are going up $42,000. Professional services are up $12,000. Vehicle purchases are actually down this year. I think the way the cycle has worked out for vehicle replacements. Election expenses are down because it's an odd numbered year. There's no election in November. And then the rest of the other increases and decreases add up to $31,000. So again, our budget is actually decreasing by $1,274,089. But again, it's spread over a smaller tax base. And so our total budget is $15.4 million, which is down $1.27 million from last year's budget. So it's a 7.6% decrease. The amount of tax we're going to collect is 27%, 27.7% less than we have collected previously. But because our grand list decreased by 40.8%, there's a likely 22% tax rate increase associated with this budget. I think I mentioned a couple of these reasons why already. The assumptions that are behind this is, again, the 41% tax reduction, or tax base reduction. We are getting revenue that we had not gotten previously. We're getting revenue for the shared services that are continuing. And then we assume that we're going to have a 1% increase in our grand list, which is slightly lower than the 3-year average, so it's a little bit of a conservative estimate. So at the end of the fiscal year, when the grand list closes, and then in August, we set the tax rate for the coming year. So we're anticipating it to be around 22% increase. So the numbers there, our current tax rate, town tax rate is 0.5513. It's going to go to 0.67, likely go to 0.6728. Which is, again, is a 22% increase. So on a typical $280,000, your home that's assessed at $280,000, that's about the average if you average out all the current grand list. The increase will be on the order of $340.20. So you can scale, if you know what your home value is assessed at, you can use those numbers to scale what your change will be. The other assumption I mentioned, the grand list growth of 1%, and then we're using $615,700 from fund balance, which, again, is leftover money from prior years. As Greg told me before, this is the one that signals it's the last slide of the foil, because it's the dessert chart, it's the pie chart. So this is how all the dollars get divided out. Public Works is the biggest chunk, followed, it looks like, by police department, then general government, and then culture and recreation, which is the library and Parks and Rec. So with that, turn it back to John.
If anybody would like to ask any questions of Andy, or anyone has any comments, this would be the time to bring these up. So you can, sure.
Essex Rescue at all funded by City of Essex?
Yeah, so there are 4 municipalities that contribute to Essex Rescue: Essex Town, Essex Junction, Westford, and Jericho, right? Underhill and Jericho, not Westford. Not Westford? There's 5. Right, it's us and 4 more, sorry, yes, sorry. Essex Junction, Essex Town, Westford, Underhill, and Jericho. And so, yes, they do. They have been asked to contribute at the same $18 per capita rate that we have.
$18 from $10, is that just increasing based on inflation?
That is partly inflation, it's partly staffing. There are difficulties with getting volunteers, and so they're finding they need to pay for more paid staff. They're also have in recent years added additional ambulances because of demand. Is there anything else that I should? Ethan is our representative to Essex Rescue, so I don't know if there's anything else that.
No, the only other thing I would call volume.
Call volume, yeah, call volumes are up. One of the outfalls of having some senior living facilities go in Essex is that there's some increased call volumes for that, also for other things because population increases. But.
Collection rate from Medicare and Medicaid don't reimburse.
Right. And reimbursement rates from Medicaid and Medicare, those are fixed, and there's this difficulty when, if there's a call, but there's no transport made, there's no payment made. So a lot of the calls that Essex Rescue goes on, if they don't transport anybody, they have to pay the cost of doing the call, but there's no reimbursement. And so that's one of the big factors. Or the reimbursement rate, if they do transport somebody, is less than their costs. Sorry, Robert? RENCA, R-E-N-C-A. Okay, thank you.
All right, is there anybody else who has a question or a comment? Yes, go ahead, your name? Tara Gregg, G-R-E-G? G-R-A-G-G, all right, very well. Andy's just asking, could you make it to a mic? There's one over here, and there is one over there. That will make it easier for us, thank you. And anybody else, if there's anyone else who feels like there might be something they'd like to say, you could.
Hi, good evening. I have a question regarding.
Whoa, hold on just a moment. Either I'm having a stroke or we need to do something with the sound. All right, try it again.
Hello?
Okay, I think we're working.
Good evening. My question is regarding the growth, the anticipated growth and the current highways part of the public works budget, because there's a couple of issues that I think are concerning regarding current traffic, and what is the future going to look like with the growth that is anticipated with roads that may not be ready to accommodate those people, and where is that money going to come from? Plus a current situation of safety in maybe formerly intersections that weren't that congested, that now they are and are becoming more and more dangerous, and the conditions of the roads, and how much of that is shared cost with other entities.
So I'll let Andy talk to the issue of growth in general. But one thing that I would note is if there is a specific intersection or set of intersections that you'd like comment on, we would need something more specific to comment on rather than having a broad thing, because there could be a lot of different places you're talking about.
Yes, one is Essex, it's Susie Wilson bypass across from the Colonial Market. There's quite a few accidents that happen there, and again, it's just that there seems to be a lot of congestion on the roads. There's a lot of time spent in traffic, particularly during peak hours when folks are coming home from work and going to work. And it seems like we're spending a lot longer on the roads as it is. So if that growth is indeed coming and we're spending such a large amount of time on the road, and plus what's expanding those roads going to look like, and would that be something that would happen as a result of the growth that I think everyone sees coming? So what is the plan, I guess, to accommodate more cars on the road, and also how would the highway and the road system be affected, coupled with staffing shortages and lengthy construction and that type of thing? Is that something that is in the works, or is it just going to sustain the way it is currently?
Is there anything that, so what Andy is asking is whether there's a specific budget related, like, so are you talking about for future years? What are they intending to plan?
Yes, because I think if there's not a plan in place for growth that will suddenly spurt and happen, that you could end up in a situation, we could all end up in a situation where we're stuck in traffic a lot longer, we're dealing with congestion, we're dealing with maybe roads that might need to be expanded or improved upon, and we kind of weren't ready for that. And I kind of feel I see that coming currently.
So I would say as a general matter that is something that the town is always thinking about. If you are specifically interested in learning about the growth plan and how things like that are going to be managed, there are town committees that you could be a part of. I know that you could follow the planning commission or the zoning board, or depending upon what happens tomorrow, perhaps the development review board. But I don't know if there's a specific budget question for today. We want to be responsive, but we're not
Sure.
seeing a hook for a specific comment, perhaps.
My sense is you might be talking about some of the state roads, the Route 15 or.
I'm not necessarily sure how they're divided, because I see that highways and public works is in the budget.
Yeah, right.
Is that something, as far as expansion of the roads, that would be in that part of the budget? Would that go to the state?
So Route 15, 117, 2A, all those highways are all state highways? So
Yes.
those are all, those are completely funded by the state. We do have we do participate in the Regional Planning Commission, which also does work with the state to assess traffic patterns and traffic issues and dangerous intersections and so forth, to coordinate between the town and the state with regard to, addressing those kind of concerns. But from the standpoint of our, the town budget, we're budgeting for the
Smaller roads.
town-based roads.
Yes. Okay.
And we do, we do also work with with the Regional Planning Commission with regard to getting grants to help for any of our infrastructure improvements. And so especially for, federal money, we quite often will go through the Regional Planning Commission. I don't know if, Greg, is there anything else that I could?
No, that clears it up. Thank you.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right, thanks.
All right, yes, sir.
Bill Doble, D-O-B-L-E.
Thank you.
Question regarding the police department and the splitting of the costs, or sharing of the costs with the city of Essex Junction, and how those figures come about. Is it related to the percentage of calls that are in the city of Essex Junction versus the town? How does all that work?
It's totally based on population. We took the 2020 census. There's, if you, 52% is in the town, 48% in the village, and so they're not in the city, I'm sorry. And so they're paying 48%. It is totally based on population.
Are there any figures about the percentage of calls that are in the city of Essex Junction versus the town?
Yeah, so that was looked at, and it's a little difficult to suss out completely, because it's an interesting thing where if somebody walks into the police station, which is in the city, it gets recorded as a city event, even though the thing they might be complaining about is in the town. So there's some stuff that would need to be sorted out. In the police, the police service contract that we have with the city, there's a clause in there that reevaluates the costing model in, I think, 3 years. And so those kind of questions we'll certainly circle back around.
Okay, so we will keep an eye on it. Okay, thank you.
If it seems inappropriate to be done based on totally on population, the intent is to revisit it within a 3-year period. Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
All right, I see another gentleman making his way to a mic. Is there anybody already there that I'm not seeing? All right, we'll just wait a second.
Mark Roberts, R-O-B-E-R-T-S.
Thank you.
I saw in the beginning that one of the priorities of the Select Board was to maintain current staffing levels. I'm curious as to why that was a priority when we're lost 41% of our income.
Is largely to do with the services that those folks provide. Even though we've lost 48% of our population and 41% of our tax base, we still have to provide the exact same services we did before. We have the same number of roads. We have the same number of libraries, same number of, nothing has changed there. And so in order to continue to provide all those services, we need all the same number of people that we have. We had, there is, with the separation, there was a management position that was taken out. We're also taking out a town clerk position, but other than that, we're keeping all staffing.
Is there anyone else? All right, not seeing any other comments. We will move into the discussion. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry, yes, sir.
My name is Lester Pelkey, and I'm just surprised that we knew that we were changing the structure of Essex Junction and Essex, that there's not more consideration given to shrinking the budget. You got 8% that's being taken away from our savings right now. You got 22% that you're saying that we need to pay more in property tax. You're going to ask for 1% more on top of the 22%. So, and possibly 2%, you're saying. So you're really asking for 24% increase. That's what you're really asking for. And I just don't, it's mind-boggling to me where you think that we're supposed to reach into our pockets and just keep, throwing money away. I know in my case, for my shit house that I live in, that it's going to cost me $2,200 to go additional. I think it's crazy. I think the select board could have done a lot more with shrinking budgets. If you look at one item, why are we still needing to pay $222 is going in your little pie chart to culture and parks? Why wasn't there some way that we could look at reducing culture and parks by just $50? It blows my mind away that you're asking for 24%. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm the only one in the audience that's feeling not so much love.
Thank you, Mr. Pelkey. P-E-L-K-E-Y?
Yep, P-E-L-K.
Great, thanks. Sure, Andy would like to comment.
So you mentioned $2,200 impact. I just wanted to make clear that the increase is only on your municipal portion of your tax. The majority of your tax bill is education tax we have no control over. And so it's only on the municipal portion of your bill that the 22% applies. It's not your entire tax bill. I don't know if there's a misunderstanding there, or if maybe I misunderstood what you said. But yeah, we fully get that this is a big ask.
All right, I believe we have another comment or question.
Over here,
Oh, okay, yes.
Henry Gabert, G-A-B-E-R-T.
All right, Uncle Henry.
This question probably just should have been asked later on or whatever. What's going on with the land records?
That might be better, unless there's a specific budgetary comment about the land records.
it's
That
gotta-
might be good to come up in public to be heard.
Okay, because it's got to be part of the budget. I mean, the town office maintains all the land records, and that they'll no longer have to maintain half as many.
So all of the land records that are currently in our vault are town land records, except for the ones that have been recorded since July 1st. But so all of the land records that exist from the Essex Junction that were generated when they were part of Essex Town will
stay there.
remain in that vault, and we still have to maintain them all.
So
On the flip side, it also gives us the revenue from people who are in there needing to search those documents. So in the future, there's a potential that Essex Junction properties would have to be searched in both vaults, ours and the city's vault.
So when are they creating their vault?
They're,
Or when are we going to stop recording their?
so well, July 1st is when the two departments split. July 1st of this year.
So coming to July 1st, if I sell a property in the Essex Junction, I take it somewhere other
It would be
than-
recorded in the Essex Junction land records, not in the Essex Town land records, correct. But if it,
Okay. Thank you.
All right, now over here.
Jerry Fox, FOX.
Thank you, sir.
The dirty secret is that because all those people who lived in Essex Junction also lived in the town of Essex, they paid to support a lot of the services that we used and that they used to some extent, but probably to a lesser degree. So while they left us and they're no longer paying a higher percentage of the taxes that went to, some of which went to us, we have to cover those because we're still providing the same services that we used before, and they're not contributing anymore.
Thank you, sir. I don't see anyone else. I'm sorry, there is somebody? Oh, all right. Very good.
Thank you, moderator. Gil Allen, Essex, that's G-I-L, last name Allen, A-L-L-E-N. In a bit of a rebuttal to Mr. Pelkey, and also in a query to the committee members here, and I think that, you know, I think you ended up saying something in the neighborhood of $340 additional municipal taxes on a home of a value appraised at about $280,000. I'm still a bit flabbergasted. I'm sure there's a mix of voters here, both for and against the merger 2 years ago, and I know that I told you so politics are not liked by anyone, so I won't go there. But it is quite impressive that 2 years ago, the predictions that were on the line came out to, I think, $329 of additional municipal taxes on a home of $280,000. So we should have seen, we should have seen, the writing was on the wall. It was spelled out in the original merger proposal to be cushioned by a gentle 10-year kind of entry phase, if you will. So we knew that this was coming. We knew that we were going to see somewhere in the neighborhood of a 22, plus a 3% annual increase in municipal taxes over every year, which we have kind of seen historically. Instead of maybe gouging into culture and recreation, stormwater, were there other avenues of revenue explored? And I know that the select board did ask the question or posed the question about a local options tax. I mean, honestly, I saw that as the only way out of this hole. And I've heard from other people that something like that would never pass in this community. But then I'm thinking, wait a second, I go to Williston and I'm paying a 1% option tax. I'm paying a 1% option tax on everything I buy at Costco, and Colchester is getting ready to build a huge recreational facility on top with the money and the income earned. So if we're all giving our money to Williston and Colchester, why aren't we thinking about a local options tax to dig ourselves out of this hole that we are in now?
And did you have a question at the end of that?
That was my question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry, that was
Thank
not a
you.
rhetorical.
No, that's okay.
That was not rhetorical, that's a real question.
Well, would you like to say anything about it?
I guess I can try to respond to this. I guess all I'd have to say is, yes, we understand the situation we're in. We're going to talk about capital next, which is another difficult situation, and I would say that local option tax is not off the table.
All right. Okay, very good. I see a person.
Hannes Fisher-Byrne, I'm likely going to have to spell the whole thing, Hannes Fischerbrne.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Fisher-Byrne.
I saw that there was some mention about moving into a new space for Essex, and I was wondering how that will affect the budget going forward, and how that will be negotiated with the city of Essex, and are we going to get anything out of potentially moving out of those offices and into new offices?
So we have publicly talked about what we're going to do with our ARPA money. There's a proposal to buy a piece of property to potentially build a new municipal center on it. Yeah, it's our town hall is no longer in our town. And so there is some desire to move out. We did have some public discussions about what to do with the ARPA money. There was a proposal to use it to do tax relief, so that this tax increase this year would not be so large. It's quite as large. That would be a temporary thing. A lot of the feedback we got was to use that money to do something more permanent. So we are having discussions about that. And yes, if we do build, if we buy the piece of property, it would likely not incur any, that particular transaction would not incur debt for the town, but building a new facility would, a new building. And we have gotten an appraisal of our current town hall. And so we would be looking at options there. I don't know, I don't have a timeline. But those discussions are absolutely happening.
Thank you.
Police department also?
The police department, there's no plan to move the police department, no.
Was that Henry Gabbard? Nah, I know that. All right, do we have, it does not appear that we have anyone else wishing to speak. So if there is no objection, we will move on to the presentation for Article VI, increasing the capital tax rate.
Okay, so the question is, shall the Town of Essex increase the capital reserve fund by adding 1 cent to the tax rate in addition to the 2 cents previously authorized for the purposes of financing capital projects? The last time the capital tax was increased was 2007. It went from 1 penny to 2 pennies. And so we're asking for an increase here. The purpose of the capital budget is to pay for all the stuff we have, all the vehicles, the buildings, to maintain the roads, maintain all our facilities, all of our heavy equipment. So it's broken into several areas: buildings, highways, equipment, park facilities, paths, walks, and trails, stormwater, information management, and natural resources management, and then we have an undesignated category. Again, the current capital tax rate is 2 cents per 100,000 or 1,000 or 100. Yikes! Of assessed value. We propose to go to 3 cents. This is largely because of the separation of Essex Junction. Again, they also paid into the town capital tax, the same rate that we have also. That goes away come July 1st. And so again, because it's 41%, we need to offset the difference. The town staff actually asked for 3.93 cents. The select board chose to roll that back a little bit because we're asking for 22% on the general fund budget. And because all of our properties are going to get reassessed over the next couple of years. And so we really wanted to see what the impact of reassessment would be before we asked for the full amount that we need, because there's a bit of an unknown there. We don't know how, it's likely that everyone's property values will increase with that assessment, but we don't know by how much. And so we didn't want to have, be overtaxing once we get to that point. So we're going to reassess the capital situation once everyone's homes are reassessed. And the situation is that the 2 cents prior to separation would generate about $530,000 a year. After losing 41% of the tax rate, it only collects $322,000. So there's a shortfall of $208,000. And so we're trying to work our way back toward having full funding for that by asking for this first step of going to 3 cents on the tax. Again, we may ask for more, we may not, depending on how the reassessment of properties goes. And so in FY 24, we will be collecting $480,000 with that tax if it's approved. And so stormwater, infrastructure, road improvements, building repairs, maintenance, park assets and heavy equipment, and fire trucks. Those are the things that your capital dollars pay for. And we also use those capital funds for matching funds for grants. We get grants from the state or from the federal government whenever we can, and they often carry typically a 20% or so a match, so we have to pay a portion of the cost of the item that we're purchasing. So that's the other place that capital goes. We leverage that as much as we can. And the $320,000 that this that would, if we don't, if this 1 penny increase doesn't pass, the capital demand exceeds that by quite a bit. Just highways and stormwater alone add up to the amount that we would collect if we stayed at 2 cents. We don't spend capital every year. We collect the money, and it has to build up. You know, a fire truck can cost quite a bit of money, and if you don't have all that money in the bank at one time, it takes a couple of years to stock it up, and so that's why we have the reserve funds. Otherwise, we'd be having a large peaks and valleys in what we're asking for the tax rate if we waited till we needed a fire truck to ask for all of the money for it. And so it's putting money away until the point that you need it. Stormwater costs are increasing because the state standards and federal standards are increasing, are tightening. And we have to maintain all of our existing infrastructure. There were a couple of unexpected stormwater repairs that happened fairly recently, Heatherbush Road and Cypress Lane, that that cost us $240,000. We had that money available, so we were able to make those repairs. But those are the kind of things that come up unexpectedly. And if we have the capital funds available to fix them, we can do so without having to borrow money. So the cost to taxpayers, this is actually fairly easy to figure out what your increase would be, since it's 1 penny based on your home value. In our example here of a $280,000 home, 1 penny is $28, so the difference is 28. So you just move the decimal point over 4 to get how much like my home is assessed at $359,500, so my increase is going to be $35.95. And so it's pretty easy to figure out. But a typical home, $280,000 home would be a $28 increase. And you've been, if your home is assessed at $280,000, you've been paying that $56 a year every year since 2007, and it doesn't increase until we ask for more. And so this is asking for more. And it'll increase for this home, it would increase to $84. After reassessment, it will increase again because it's based on the value of your home. And so that was the reason why we didn't ask for the full 3.39, is because we don't know where everybody's going to end up at that point. I think that's the last slide. Yep. So, all right.
Thank you, Andy, both for the presentation and the lesson on powers of 10 and place value in mathematics. All right, are there any questions or comments about the capital? You're not raising your hand. All right, are there any questions or comments? I see movement on the floor. Either they are vacating the premises or they have things to say. There were two of them, so I think they're leaving. All right, are there any other people who would like to ask any questions or have any comments about Article 6? Seeing none, then if there is no objection, I'm sorry, there is an objection, okay.
Thank you. Will Dodge, W-I-L-L-D-O-D-G-E.
Thank you.
Just very briefly, linking Article 5 and Article 6, one of the three challenges on Article 5 that the town is facing, and it was I think it was in the third bullet, was heating and gasoline, and that was part of the 42,000, which is admittedly a drop in the bucket. But it seems like a big challenge for Article 6 is that if we're going to be investing in building repairs and maintenance, heavy equipment for public works, new vehicles, we've got to make efficiency a priority in those decisions so that we don't keep seeing the cost of gasoline and heating driving this up year after year. So I would just hope, and I sense that it's certainly a priority of the town staff, that thinking about efficiency in these new capital investments, not just for buildings, but also for equipment and vehicles, becomes a priority in the future.
Thank you. Is there anything else by anybody else? Then if there is no objection, we will move into discussion of Articles 7 through 12, the Charter Amendments presentation.
Okay, so we live in Vermont, which is a Dillon's rule state, which means that municipalities can only do what the state allows you to do, as opposed to a home rule state where municipalities can do whatever they want unless they're prohibited from doing it by the state. And so that's the way the laws work in Vermont is we can't do anything unless the legislature municipalities can't do anything unless the legislature says they can, and the governor. And so what a charter is essentially a constitution, or it's not a full governance document. Our charter is only 8 pages long when it's printed, but it gives us the unique powers that are unique to us, or that we exercise on a daily basis. It says that we have a manager, council, form of government. It says we have 5 select board members. It determines how often, what their terms are, and those kind of things. So it allows us to do things that are explicitly stated within the charter that aren't necessarily part of statute, or that modify statute, or so we have special permission to do things the way that we do them. And so in order to change how we do things, we need to ask the legislature if we want to add any new powers, if we want to change how we do business, we need to ask the legislature and the governor's permission to do so. And so that's the reason why we have this charter changes before us. The Select Board, we had a request to make a charter change come from a member of the public, and we decided rather than only address that one change, we established a charter committee over the summer with a very tall mission to come back to us with recommendations in time for this town meeting. We did get those recommendations on December 6th. They met weekly for all summer into the fall. They did a lot of work and brought back a lot of suggested changes. And what these 5 articles represent are the pieces that we felt we could go forward with in the time that we had between December 6th and today. We had to warn the town meeting contents by the end of January. That was done on January 30th. So we had from December 6th to January 30th to decide what we wanted to bring forward. And again, these are the 5 that we wanted to bring forward. There were several other things. As I said, the committee did great work, and there are a number of things that we left on the table that we will continue to consider. And so we very well may be back a year from now with additional changes from that effort. And we're committed to go through the rest of those changes as well. So, having said all that, the first one is a reorganization of the charter. I mentioned that it's 8 pages long. I've been on the Select Board for 9 years, and every time I read the charter, I have a hard time finding what I'm looking for, because it is kind of messily organized. It's very difficult to find exactly what you're looking for in there. And so the committee did come back with a better ordering of the content. And so in order to make it more readable, more understandable, the Select Board chose to move forward with that request, or with that request, without changing too much of the language. There is one segment one section that's being deleted that refers to the Essex Town School District and the Essex Junction Graded School District fiscal year calendars. That's really not relevant now that they've merged into the Essex Westford School District. And so we're just taking that language out. That's the only delete we have. There's no adds. So this first article, again, is just rearranging the content that's already there and taking out one small segment. No new words added, nothing other than the organization changed. The next one is about allowing the Select Board to set fees. It seems like it should be an easy thing for us to be able to decide how much we charge for the services we provide, but there are some services that the state defines how much you can charge in statute. An example is dog licenses. We discovered that during COVID, a lot of people were renewing their dog licenses by mail, and so our costs went up because we had to mail the dog licenses out. And we found that because the state statute sets the cost of a dog license, we could not recoup that cost. This is just an example. It's not a big revenue generator or anything, but it's the kind of cost that we could address if we had the ability to set our own fees. There are a couple of municipalities nearby. We chose to use the language from South Burlington. It includes a list of potential fees, a non-inclusive list, like things like fireworks displays, itinerant vendors, public resort and accommodation. I don't really know what that means, but we can, having the right to set our own fees, we can address some costs. We could generate a little bit more revenue. So that's the intent here. And again, we're taking language that's already been approved by the legislature for another nearby municipality, so that's what that is about. The next one is a charter amendment that would give the Select Board the authority to establish a what's called a just cause ordinance, eviction ordinance. So if a landlord wants to remove a tenant, there's a form that needs to be filled out, and one of the checkbox needs to be selected for the reason for a person being evicted, and one of those choices is no cause. And so what the intent here would be to give the select board the power to establish an ordinance that would remove the ability of a landlord to remove a tenant for no cause. There would have to be a just cause, a non-payment of rent, property damage, criminal activity. Those are the kind of things that could be included in that. The Charter Committee came forward with a fairly extensive language that they asked for us to put in there. We didn't feel like we had enough time between December 6th and January 30th to fully vet that language. And so we condensed it down simply to giving the Select Board the power to enact an ordinance that would address this question. All of the details around how that would work would come during the discussion of establishing the ordinance. We would go through the complete public process, the whole standard process that we would use for establishing or for setting a new ordinance. So I think that's that one. And then recall of select board members. This was actually the issue that a resident brought forward to us. In Vermont, the only way to remove a select board member is to vote against them the next time they're up for election. There is no general recall provision in Vermont statute. So if a municipality wants to have this power, then they have to put it into their charter. There are a couple dozen, maybe it's even more than that. I don't remember. It may be as many as 40 municipalities. I'm trying to remember how many it is that have recall provisions. They don't. My understanding is it's only happened twice in the history of Vermont, and it's only succeeded once. But we're going forward here with this. The conditions would be that you'd need 15% of registered voters to sign a petition to remove a select board member. Once the select board is given that petition, they have 60 days to call an election. So this would be, if it's close to town meeting, you could piggyback on an existing or general election in November. You could piggyback on that election, but if not, you have to call a special election. And then in that election, at least the same number of people who voted in favor of the particular candidate would need to be voting against that candidate. So there's a provision in the charter change proposal that says again that at least the same number of people that voted in the election that elected the select board member would have to vote in the election to remove them, or 1/3 of the registered voters, whichever is greater. The other provision in there is that a recall can't be called for more than once in a 12-month period. So you can't do a repeated recall vote on the same individual over and over and over. I think I hit all of the points there. Okay, and then the next one is transitioning from a zoning board of adjustment to a development and review board. Our charter specifies how we do our planning. It says we're going to have a planning commission, and we're going to have a zoning review board. The difference here is that in our current model, the planning commission does both planning and development review. And the zoning board does adjudicates zoning appeals. Am I getting that right? And so in the new model, if we move to a development review board, the planning commission would only do planning, and the development review would happen in the development review board. They would also do the role of the current zoning board. And so procedures really would not change. It's just a matter of how or who, which group is doing the activities. It transitions the development review from one appointed commission to another. And then, is that it? So, okay, so the question is, when would these take effect? So if tomorrow the vote on any of these passes, it has to go then to the legislature. As I said before, we're in a Dillon's rule state. You need to have the legislature to approve, and then the governor needs to either sign or allow it to go into a law without a signature. And so it needs to get through the legislature and the governor. The legislature has the power to change the language any way they choose to. And so it's likely that they will take testimony, and they may ask us to add language. They may take language out. They can change charter requests however they want, or they can choose not to take them up at all. As you may recall, several years ago, we voted on a 3+3 charter change. It went to the legislature and never went beyond the initial committee review. There was testimony taken, but it never moved forward. And then we got into separation and it became a moot point. So again, we're totally dependent on the legislature to get any of these passed through. And that's it for charter changes.
Thank you again, Andy. All right, so if anybody has anything they'd like to say about any of these articles, Articles 7 through 12, if you could please go to the mic, again, state your name, spell your last name, and then say which article you'd like to speak about and remind us which one it is, and then say whatever it is you'd like to say, or ask whatever it is you'd like to ask. Oh, there is a great murmuring. I can see movement.
Brad Kennison, Kennison.
Thank you, Mr. Kennison.
I am the resident that made a proposal to the Select Board on the recall of elected officials. It turned out to be a recall of Select Board members. What started out as a collaborative effort with the Select Board, after it went to the Charter Committee and came back to the Select Board, the proposal had changed dramatically. And what I take issue with is Section C of that proposal. It reads, at least as many registered voters of the town vote as voted in the election wherein the officer was elected, or at least 1/3 of the registered voters of the town vote, whichever is greater. The issue with this is if the Select Board member had been elected at a time when mail-in balloting was in effect, participation rate is much greater than when in-person voting is in effect. As an example, last year's annual meeting participation rate was 40%, and that was mail-in balloting. In the previous year, in 2021, mail-in balloting, it was 46%. So that if there was a recall, successful petition, that would mean that usually in a special election, it's walk-in or in-person voting. That would require 40 or 46%, something like that, of the registered voters would need to vote to recall that Select Board member. And that's significant. We have 8,785 registered voters. So that's over almost 3,000 votes. So my proposal originally was that that the named official or Select Board member shall be removed when the petition is approved by the majority of ballots cast. Just like the Select Board member, when they're elected at an annual meeting, or annual election, they win if they win by one vote. So that's the proposal that I had made, and which I would like to see changed. Twice recall has been used in Vermont, once in Windsor in 2003, the other in Underhill in 2021. Both required the 15% for a petition. In Windsor, they required 1/3 of the registered voters to vote. Only 23% voted in the walk-in special election, even though 77% voted for recall. In Underhill, the same number, 23% voted in the recall special election, and 96% voted for recall. That passed because it was the majority rules. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Do we have someone over here?
Yeah, Francis Raymond. I'm concerned about the rental. I don't know if Essex has a problem with people being kicked out of their place. I do own one rental, and it's in Essex Junction, but I don't know if people who don't ever have one and have people who are abusive or don't take care of the place, and you try to get them out anyways with the state, it's pretty difficult. I called up my lawyer once because I wanted to get a person out. He said, go over and offer them $3,000 or $4,000 and ask them to leave. I don't think that the town should be getting in the business of monitoring rental business. These people have to make a living, pay their bills, and you might just say, well, we're going to tell you that you can't do it. I'm against this one, and I voted against it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Arthur Ramsey, R-A-M-S-A-Y.
Thank you.
Regarding Article 10, with regard to the specific requirements in Section C, where does that compare not just with the two specific examples that have been discussed, but overall across those 40 or so municipalities that do allow for recall elections? Is it more standard that it's the 1/3 of registered voters that had voted in the previous election, majority? Where does that stand?
Andy, do you know?
Oh, I didn't study up on that. It's pretty variable. There's no standard. And I can't directly answer that question because I'm sorry, I don't have the specifics.
One of your select board colleagues is raising her hand in the front.
Yeah.
That was, the numbers decided was on the material read, that was the majority, major.
Okay.
That's why it was decided.
Okay. Don Hill Fleury was part of the charter committee, so thank you for that clarification. So this was right. Those numbers were vetted by our charter committee, and this is the recommendation they came to us with based on the an overview of all other municipalities that have a recall provision in their charter.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mark Roberts again. I think that the recall provision, is the way it's written. I'll be voting against it, but I think it's reasonable. I think that the will of the voters is a very important thing, and the necessity for the amount of people who voted in the election to come and vote in the recall is important because they expressed their will at a regular election. And if you want to remove somebody and change the will of the voters, then those very same voters need to weigh in. And so if you have a small amount of people who can come in and take somebody off the board, there needs to be a threshold that celebrates the will of the voters. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts.
Yes, Robert Luang, L-E-U-A-N-G. I've been a landlord since 1976, now retired. I've had a very positive relationship with all of my tenants over the years. So in addressing the just cause eviction, and so this is from my perspective, and there's pros and cons with everything, so this is a con. In my experience, 99% of my tenants have been fabulous. They've just been really good people, taking care of the places, paid the rent, et cetera, et cetera. And I have had the 1% that, I guess the nicest way to say it is they just haven't been good neighbors. So I've had duplexes to fourplexes to 13-unit places. And it's been my experience that the 99% would like to have that 1% removed from their environment so they can have a decent lifestyle. And also I have relationships with all the neighbors of my properties. It's just, I'm a hands-on person, and I've done all the maintenance, I do all the upkeep, mow the lawns, et cetera, et cetera. So my question is, in putting a clause in, are we going to put in something to protect the 99% of the people and their environment to be safe? And you know, a lot of this 1%, and it's not all of them, and I understand that. But as a landlord, I try to take care of everybody as a whole for the health of my buildings and my people. So my real thought I'm passing forward is, it's great if we can protect the 1% that need protecting, from my perspectives and experience. But we also need something to protect the 99% when there's someone in there that, you know, you can't prove that they're doing drugs, or they're, you know, maybe they're just, they have a negative behavior that doesn't fit the normal tendency of what's expected in today's lifestyles. So that's my one point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lang. I'll just say very quickly that this doesn't have any language specifically about protecting the rights of the landlord or a tenant, because that would have to be articulated through the process of coming into an ordinance, which Andy had mentioned. So if you want me to let him answer more about that, I am happy to do that. But there isn't any specific language here that he could really comment on.
Yeah, so my recommendation is that you do consider that when you put the mechanics of that language together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, hi, Bruce Post, 1 Cindy Lane. I was a member of the Charter Review Committee. For a point of information regarding the recall provision, this provision is not what the Charter Committee recommended. There are elements of it that were in there. One of our major concerns was you don't have to put in a reason why you're recalling someone. And we did research. We looked at other states. We didn't stay restricted to Vermont. We had put in some pretty specific conditions, malfeasance and things like that. But, you know, I just wanted to make the point that we did come up with a different approach based on some things we found in our own research. So this isn't perfect in my review, but I've supported it anyways. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Post.
Maureen McDermott, Maureen McDermott. Regarding Article 9, the just cause eviction, can the Select Board give any indication of whether or if the article is passed by ballot, the Select Board will be acting on moving forward to craft and attempt to enact the just cause charter change, given the intensity of the housing crisis in the state and the urgency that renters face every day? Just because I know the article gives you the power to move on it, but I just am curious whether you can give any indication that you will move on it once it's enacted, if it's voted on and then allowed by the legislation.
Sure.
So we haven't had that discussion yet. I can't say one way or the other whether we would or would not, because we haven't had that discussion, and I can't project what a future Select Board may choose to do or not do. So no, we I think it's likely, given the discussion we have had about the desire to include this charter change on the ballot this year, but we haven't committed, we haven't taken an official position on that.
All right. Okay, yes, ma'am. And thank you, Ms. McDermott.
Hi, sorry to speak again, but just real briefly on the just cause change. There seems to be some confusion in this room about what that is. What I'm hearing from landlords or former landlords is the 1% that are not good tenants, this is going to protect them and make life miserable for the 99% that are good tenants. From what I understand, I have friends who worked really hard on this, is that is fundamentally not true at all. Just cause means that you have to have just cause. With just cause, the 1% of tenants who are doing those things to get them evicted will still be legally evicted. So what are you saying it's protecting them for? It's not. It's not protecting them at all. It's protecting the 99% of good tenants. It's allowing their lease to be renewed automatically. That's it. That's all. Period. Full stop. Bad tenants committing crimes and doing bad things are still going to be legally evicted. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? No, I don't see anything. So if there is no objection, we will move to Article 4, the public to be heard. I'm sorry? We did not do Article 12. Oh, I'm sorry. Article 12. The announcement of offices up for election in Article 12. Do we have that list?
It's Ethan and I.
So there are two different select board, sorry?
Typically just announce the 2 positions, the 3 positions that are up for election.
Ah, very good. There are 2 select board positions and a moderator position. You might want to look somewhere else. Oh, it is on the slide. All right. Are they 2 3-year positions? There are 2 3-year positions for the select board and 1 1-year position for moderator.
No, it's not there.
That's all right. I think we got it. All right. That's it. Now, does anybody have anything to say? All right. If there is no, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, okay.
My name's Elizabeth Poulin, Poulin. I, for one, will be writing in John Sonic, Sonnick, for moderator, and I suggest others do the same. Thank you.
She's never been right in the head. Yes?
I don't believe you're allowed to campaign at this meeting.
Very well, then. I shall consider you admonished, Elizabeth Poulin. All right. If there is no objection, we will move to Article 4, the public to be heard. I would just like to mention that I am a member of the public, and I am a horrible, horrible person for having to forgotten to mention the role that Tammy Getchell played in arranging all of this. You thought this was cacophonous and weirdly moderated. Without her, this would have been a whole different thing. There would have been no popcorn. There would have been fewer, I mean, it was a great job that she did, so my apologies for having left you out. I know that you didn't put yourself in, but I had you starred and circled, and I somehow missed the stars and the circles. Are there any other things that the public might like to say? Yes, I can't, Greg Duggan was sitting over there wondering, oh no, he mentioned at the beginning, it's like Chekhov's gun. It's the third act, Greg.
So I learned earlier this evening that it's our town manager's birthday today. So, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, happy birthday, dear Greg, happy birthday to you.
All right. Is there anything that anybody would like to comment on generally? Anybody? This is completely open. We can't make any motions, we can't take any binding action, but if anybody just has something they'd like to share or say, this would be the time to do that. And if there are no people who have any thoughts they'd like to share, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved from Mrs. Dawn Hill-Fleury. Can I get a second? I'm sorry? I am sorry, it is too late because we have a motion that has been seconded by, I'm sorry? Maggie George, very good. H-J-O-R-T, outstanding. H-J-O-R-T. All right, we have a motion to adjourn that has been seconded. This is non-debatable, so all those in favor of adjourning indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Whereupon, we shall dispose of the said business, and we are adjourned until tomorrow, March 7th, 2023. If you have not already voted in the town offices, please come to EMS tomorrow, where I will see you there with my excellent team of people who will check you in and get your votes counted. Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening, and I hope to see you tomorrow and next year.